Yeah. Please, would we kneel down and we pray?
Yeah.
Dear God, thank you so much for the privilege to be able to be in thy holiday and to be able to understand thy truth at the end of the world. May you give us knowledge and wisdom as we journey through thy truth. May you impress the truth upon our understanding. Be with us, guide us. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, I would like us to look into one of the topics that we are very familiar with. We'll be looking at feminism. So when we look at feminism, feminism is a range of political, is a range of social political movements and ideologies that can aim to define and establish the political, economic, personal, and social equality of the sexes. So in most cases, we are seeing advocating more for the rights of women. So one of the reasons why we're looking at this particular subject, we need to see when you look at external things, how it impacts internal things. When you go back to 1844 history, so in 1844 history, we see that there was election going here in United States of America. And one thing that we are supposed to consider, the millerites could not comprehend the external events and that they were not able to give in the proper voting election of how the whole United States of America as a whole will be shaped by that particular election, that particular year. So all the highs, all their minds were focused on internal things. They thought Christ was coming very soon, and they saw that it wasn't necessary for them to put in much more effort to see how the politics of the United States of America would shape the whole country. So looking at external events give us also a wider view to see how external things we will have to give our understanding on how we view these things. We know for so long we've been hearing about the rights of women. Yeah, to some of us, maybe we started knowing, we could hear, but I didn't know internally to really play a very great role. So mostly where we start tracking that, when we look at the history of the Mennonite tribe internally in this movement, before that, Elder Jeff used to speak in 1989 that we are all going to be priests. And that means if we are going to look at the lineage of the priest, we used to have only from the priesthood. You go back in the Bible, you trace out from the priesthood of Aaron, you'd have to trace out the history. But again, when you come to the book of Acts, we see Paul is trying to tell us another priest that is coming from a different lineage. And when you look at us, we are spiritual priests, we are literal priests. And if we are all going to be priests, and who were the priests at that time period, they were holy men. And if you look at the end of the world, we're all going to be priests, both men and women. And that means if we're going to be both men and women, we see that it applies that we are all equal beings, and that we are all going to be priests to give a particular truth to a particular people that are in a very poor spiritual condition. So understanding feminism gives us a wider view, because for roughly 6,000 years, women have been oppressed for so long. And looking at we as a movement actually before the study of the Mennonite tribe, how we used to cooperate was much more men-oriented. The elders more were men, if you trace out that history. So with the understanding of the Mennonite tribe message, we were able to make a lot of changes and started having in women elders, women leaders, women Bible workers, women coordinators, and up to the lowest level where we are able to bring a lot of changes. But that doesn't mean that we already had a proper understanding of what feminism was. So we need to go through the history. But before that, when the movement understood feminism, there was a lot of changes that was made. But though we will still be having individuals, sometimes we need to reflect back into our life and see if we are able to practice this, we are able to put all the things into place. So when you start tracing out the history of feminism, we'll see from 1840, there was an anti-slave convention, and people, they were trying to stop slavery. So there was a meeting that was called in place. And in this meeting, there were other people that sent women to represent them, to go and give in their view, to speak for what was happening in other particular areas. So in this meeting, as they were trying to end slavery in the United States of America, people sat in, and then in that sitting, they were able to come up with the conclusions, but women were left behind. So in the first meeting, women wanted to attend, and then they were left behind, meaning that these women had views and points to give. But when you look at how the world had been set up, it has really been pro-men, like basing on patriarch system, where men were the ones who could give their ideas, who could give their views, their thoughts, and women were totally left behind. So these three women actually are in 1840. That was Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Lady Bryan. They wanted to represent their particular places where they were coming from and give their views in as far as slavery was supposed to end at that particular dispensation. We saw that they were left out of the meeting, and the men were the ones who sat down and came up with how to make sure that these issues about slavery comes to an end. So that means 1840. We come to 1848, that was still a Seneca Fall Convention. So women were able to meet and come up with I think 13 to 14 rules, solutions, and where they were able to say out that they came up with the religious conditions, the social conditions, and political conditions that were hindering women from speaking out, and the challenges that were affecting women as a whole. So we still see with the impact of the three women, we saw from 1848 up to 1919 to 1920, women were able to achieve the right to vote. So we can normally mark that with the first wave feminism. They were able to achieve one thing, but that was really the beginning, because earlier on, women were not voting, men were the ones that were voting. So they struggled to ensure that women achieve the rights to vote. So women achieved the rights to vote from 1919, 1920. Then after that, there was World War II. So in the World War II, men go to warfares. As usual, like we said earlier on, the world is pro-men more. Look at the world we live in, it's pro-men. So what we're seeing here, in this time period, men go to work, and then women take over the responsibilities. So they enjoy the sweetness of working. They see how it is sweet to work, how it is sweet to be independent, how it really impacts them as a whole. Not all, when the war ended, men came back, they wanted to resume back their workforce. And then not all women accepted to go back and remain household wives, continue with household duties. Not all women accepted to do that. Others went back, but others refused, and that impact the rise of second wave feminism. So we are marking the rise of second wave feminism from 1863 to 1989. And we know that when you look at second wave feminism, they had really fought a lot, and mostly they were able to achieve a lot with the law. So you can see there were a lot of things that women they got to achieve, like the Pregnancy Act, the family planning. There was a law requiring women admission into military academics. There were a lot. So when you see second wave feminism and first wave feminism, it's dealing with the should I say, the patriarchal system to give them the rights to vote, the rights to education, the rights to family planning, the rights to work, and all that. And then when you come to third wave feminism, we see a lot, because in the third wave feminism, we see it is struggling with the mindset of the society. And that's when now you have a very big battle to fight. So from third wave feminism, we're fighting with the mindset of the society. But in 1989, we're going to have intersectionality that was brought by 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗄𝗃. She was trying to speak about the different layers. She was trying to speak about the different layers that can be of an advantage or a disadvantage to how things were taking place. Because when you look at, we go back to United States, women were given the rights to vote, but which women? It was only the white women that were voting, but the Black women were left behind. So she comes ahead to speak about that. Even when we spoke about the rights of women to vote, still there was a particular type of women that were not voting. And all that was due to racism, because there was a lot of racism and segregation that was happening. Then from 1991 to Second Advent, we're going to mark the third wave feminism. And from 1991, we're going to see Anita Hills versus 𝘂𝗶𝗴𝗲𝗃𝗏, where she's going to, at that time period, they were electing a Supreme Court judge, and that was Thomas Clarence. And then she speaks out that she was sexually harassed by Thomas Clarence, of which he rejects that. And then another person that wrote more was Rebecca Walker. She said that if you see a woman experience being ignored and left behind, then that should give you more pain. And then you should know that the war has just begun. So we normally mark this with the rise of third wave feminism. So looking at the history of feminism, after that, feminism gets to be divided into three groups, of which we have the first wave feminism, the second wave feminism, and the third wave feminism. Sorry, not first, second, the cultural, the liberal, and then the radical feminist, of which when you try to look at more of the, when you try to look at more of liberal feminism, at first, when you look at the perspective, when they're speaking about the rights of women, the liberal feminisms have been able to achieve a lot of rights that women have achieved, abortion rights, education, because they're trying to work within the patriarch system to give women the rights. At first, I used to think that was all we could tie that with beauty standards, but we realized that it's not all about beauty standards. It's about the political liberty, trying to work within the patriarch system to give women their rights. And within the patriarch system, because it's pro-men, you find that women will not be given their rights as they want. You can even see with the overturning of Roe versus Wade in 2022, and you see the impact of that on women in the United States of America. So as well as you're seeing within the United States of America, because it's a glorious land, we have to come back and see within our particular countries and see what women are going through, what challenges they're facing. Our patriarch has shaped the mindset. We should be able to break down this within us and undo all form of sexism, and then bring in the one that God has given at the end of the world. So I want us to dwell more. There's this article that has been posted on media broadcast. It's about it's a book that it is a book that is written by Christiana Lam. She speaks more about our bodies, the battlefield. She tries to explain more about what war does to women. It has a lot you can read, but we're going to go through that. There's a lot we can learn in this book. As I've been reading, it is very challenging. So I'm assuming that we all have this article. we will be following. So we're in page 13. It reads, they put names in the boil and began to draw them out. 10 names, 10 girls. The girls quivered like kittens caught under a dripping tub. For them, there was no lucky dip. The men pulling out the slips of the paper were fighters from the Islamic State, and he would take a girl as a slave. Nama stared at her hands, blood pounding in her ears. The girl next to her was younger than her, about 14, and mingling with fear. But when Nama tried to hold her hand, one of the men whipped off his belt and lashed them apart. So it's trying to tell us that if you try to follow the history, these girls were captured, and this is the time period that there was war going on. And one of these girl, this woman says that there's this young girl who is really feeling so much threatened and having all this fear. She wants to hold her hand so that she feels not scared. She feels like she's not alone, because when she does that, this young other girl will feel like she's accompanied. She's not alone in what was going on her mind. So there was a belt that was wiped off, and then their hands were separated. The man was older and larger than the others, around 60, she guessed, with a belly cascading over his trouser and a vicar's scarf to his lips. By then, she had been 9 months in ISIS captivity. So this is telling us about the ISIS rebels that caught these 10 girls. And you can really see there were a lot of horrible and toxic and tragic things that were done to them. She knew none of them were kind, but she prayed that one didn't pick her name. So in her mind, she was praying, I wish these people did not pick me, because she knows what will come out of there will be very tragic. So Nama, the man who read out her name, was Abu Dadnon. He looked younger, almost like her brother. The hair on his chin still flat. Maybe he would have less cruelty in his heart. So she's trying to look at this man and thinking in her mind, maybe this one will be much more fair and nice to me. Maybe will not torture me to that standard. The draw continued. The fat man picked out the young girl next to her, the other young girl of 14, but then he said something to others in Arabic, pulled out 2 crisp $100 notes and slapped them on the table. Abu Danun shrewd, pocketed the money and handed over his slip of paper. Minutes later, the fat man was shoving her into his black Land Cruiser and driving through the streets of Mosul, a city she had once dreamed of visiting, but which was now the capital of these monsters who had swept into her homeland and adopted her and 6 of her brothers and sisters among thousands of others. She stared through the tinted windows. An old man sitting on a cart was whipping on a donkey, it forward, and people were out shopping. Though all the holy women in the streets were in black hijab, it was strange to see everyday life still going on for other people, almost like watching a movie. Our captor was an Iraq called 𝗵𝗔𝗴𝗲𝗿, and he was a mullah. The religious ones were the worst. So she's trying to speak about the ISIS rebels that were capturing women. And according to her, in a particular lot, there were like 10 that were captured. And you can see there was exchange of notes. There was buying and selling of these captured girls. And later they were taken. So she tries to speaks more about what the person who captured her, what the person is doing. He did everything to me, she later recounted. Hitting, sex, pulling my hair. She says there was sex and everything. I was refusing, so he forced me and hit me. He said, you are my sabaya, meaning that you were a slave. After that, I just laid down and tried to float my mind above my body as if it was happening to someone else, so it couldn't steal all of me. So this is really very painful. Like what war does to women's bodies. In places where there is war, the people who suffer more are mostly women and children. They go through a lot because like there's a lot of rape cases done upon them. And if you follow this, you'll hear a lot of rape cases. And these soldiers, these terrorists are using as a weapon of fighting to threaten their enemy. And this has always gone through and had a lot of impact on women. After that, I just laid there and tried to float my mind above my body as if it was happening to someone else, so it couldn't steal all of me. He had 2 wives and a daughter, but they did nothing to help me. In between pleasing him, I would have to do all the housework. Once I was dishing, and one of the wives came and made me take a tablet, some kind of 𝗔𝗶𝗴𝗲𝗿. They also gave me some contraceptives. So maybe one of these wives just thought of, I should just do for her a favor. She doesn't conceive. How would all this painful thing happen? And you have these 2 women, and then another child of theirs. You can really see, if you follow this book, you wouldn't like to be a woman. Just like when I'm reading this, I don't need this to happen in warfares, but we still have the things happening in all parts of the world. Women keeps being raped time and again. You can't move past night, you're scared. Like if you move, why are you a woman moving at this time period? And then you find this man who is moving, you rape a woman and there's nothing being done about that. It's like men are okay to move anyhow they want. And then about women, there should be that limitation because something bad or something tragic could happen on you. So you can see how it becomes very painful when you just realize you came from birth as female. What people do to you, it is very tragic. So this is not only happening in warfares. When you read this, you can see the pain, what these women went through, but still in all our places, you still find these things are happening. Issues of rape coming time and again, being taken again, being reported time and again. And most of these things are not being taken seriously or being handled properly. She continues, our only respite came every 10 days when Mullah went to Syria to visit the other part of the caliphate. So far, she only gets peace and freedom only when this rebel goes to visit other members of his. After a month, so 𝗷𝗶𝗴𝗲𝗿 sold her for $4,500 to another Iraq called 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗲𝗃, a healthy prophet. 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗲𝗃 ran a cement factory and had 2 wives and 9 children. So you can see there's selling and going on happening. So I'm saying this, it's happening here due to war. But again, when you come to African countries, there's still this dowry process going on. Women are being sold. The level of a woman is being compared to a level of a goat, a chicken, cow, and hen. And when you try to resist that, not to be sold, then you're going to have your whole family deny you. If you're going to get married, then don't come to us. We don't know you. Your existence automatically stays without your family members because you're able to stand against dowry payment. But a man can easily refuse to pay dowry. He can easily refuse to pay dowry, and the family is okay with that. First of all, they're like, we're fine, we're not going to pay dowry. So you've reduced us of the burden of looking for money to get for cattle. Yet in other parts, it's still very tragic. You can't run away from dowry. Women are even sometimes being killed, being abandoned, rejected by their own family members. So in African countries, it is very toxic when you try to stand against dowry payment. But if you see here, only in this article, we're seeing that what these women are going through. So apart from being enslaved, being used, being beaten, getting all forms of misogyny and violence on them, they're still going to be raped on top of that. If you read that story, it is very painful. So after she was sold again to another person, And this person had a cement factory, and he had 2 wives and 9 children. 2 of his sons were fighters with ISIS. It was the same thing, forcing me to have sex, but then he took me to the house of his friend, 𝗶𝗶𝗃𝗲𝗏. He sold me for $8,000. So you can see how he's making a very huge profit, like you're doing a business. So about here, when people produce girls, they're very happy. The more girls you have, the more dowries you have. You're going to be a rich parent in the future. Like parents who just produce their daughter and they have in their mind, you need to pay dowry. It is very painful. Even when we know that this is bad, even when somebody, and the more highly educated you are, the more your soul, the lower you're educated, the little you get the dowry. But the more you're educated, the more you are sold to the man's family, and they will buy you. And once you go there, you change your name, not only your names, because most of the times you find that if you have a woman being married to a man, she will automatically have the identity of the husband. Like if like me, I'm called Sandra, then I'll have the other surname of that man on top of mine. She loses her own identity. And most of the times, women will be called by the names of the man, the other surname. All the respect, everything goes to the man, and identity automatically gets lost. So they're still selling here. 𝗶𝗶𝗃𝗲𝗏 sold me to 𝗂𝗶𝗃𝗂𝗏𝗃, who kept me for a week. Then he sold me to 𝗂𝗶𝗃𝗃𝗏𝗃, who was a bomb maker in Mosul. He kept me for 20 days of raping, then sold me to 𝗂𝗶𝗃𝗃𝗏. 20 days of raping. So you can imagine what this woman went through. It was really very abusive. Seeing what women go through, it is very painful. In the end, she was sold to 12 different men. She lists them one by one. So she was sold to 12 different men, and she lists their names. She lists the names of the children, even the names of the wives. She couldn't forget them because she thought that these people would pay for all the harm that they've committed to her. To be sold like that from one to another, as if we were gods, was the worst. She said, I tried to kill myself, to throw myself out of a car. Another time I found some tablets and took the load, but still I woke up. I felt even death wouldn't want me. So this is very painful. She tried to commit suicide many times. Once you're being raped, you feel you have lost that you in you. You lose that you. And this is what she's going through. So when you see this book, it's trying to tell us about rape in war. Most of the warfares, we can see the war that is happening between Israel and then the Palestinian, the Hamas. You can see the war, Russia and Ukraine. We can still continue looking other types of war. Women still suffer a lot. Men as always, these soldiers always use rape as a tool to fight. So she says, Christina says, she's writing a book about rape in war. It is the cheapest weapon known to man. It devastates family, empties villages. It turns young girls into outcasts who wish their lives over when they were hardly begun. It begets children who are daily reminders to their mothers of their ordeal and are often rejected by their community as bad blood. It is almost always ignored in history books. So all these rape cases are being ignored in history books. Like when you look at most of the history books are pro-men. Everything, this good book is about this man wrote this book, this one did this, all these prominent scientists, excuse me, most of them are men. You find that men still gets the privilege to have the chances of being raised and praised. But all these women that have been raped, that went through all this pain, you don't find them in history book. Nothing has been written about them. She says, every time I think, she thinks she had had the worst she can hear, she would meet someone like Nama in jeans and a shirt with black trainer. Her hazel brown hair drawn back in a ponytail from a pale scrub face. She looked like a teenager, though she was 22, and she had just turned 18 when she was captured. You can imagine, you were just 18 when you were captured. All this abuse you're going through. Indeed, if you were here, you would think of violent suicide. I think that would be the best thing you would have in your mind. I think I need to just leave this world where I won't be having time to be abused again. That was in her mind. And probably if I was in her shoe, it would really be very tragic for me. So she says, when you see her, she looks like teenager. She was 22. She had just turned 18 when she was captured. We sat on cushions in a nearly swept tent in Kanga camp, near the northern Iraq city of 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃, one of the row upon the row of the white tents that had become a home of sorts to thousands of the Yazidis. We talked for hours. Once she started, she did not want to stop. And though sometimes she laughed, telling me of small acts of revenge she managed to inflict on her captors, she never smiled. Before I left, she turned her phone over to show me a passport photo inside the back cover. It was her as a smiling schoolgirl, and the only thing she had left from childhood in which she had never heard of the word rape. I need to believe I am still that girl. So when she goes all through that form of violence and rape upon her, she felt like she had really lost her. She's not herself. She's not that girl she thought she used to be. This is really total depression. It's more than depression. Maybe you think of rape as something that has always happened in war that goes along with pillage. Ever since man has gone to war, he has helped himself to the women, whether to humiliate his enemy, to wreak revenge, satisfy its lust, or just because he can. Indeed, rape is so common in war that we speak of rape of a city to describe its wanton destruction. So it's not only in war, it is everywhere. Like she's emphasizing more on war. You can still see what war does to a woman's body, but even where we are, you still find these places are being happening. Like, how about people who are married, husband and wife? There may still be rape cases happening because once you have the consent of somebody without their permission, that means you've raped them until when they have totally agreed. And these stories keep being silent. Like, most people think like if you're married, you shouldn't speak about what is happening to you. You should just keep it within yourself, while others will end up just dying with the pain they've been going through with constant rape. Like here, yeah, it's more worse really. Like when a man buys a woman, when they'll tell you, what is the reason why he has married? Because if he wanted food, he can get food. If he wanted clothes, he can get clothes. Then he married you for that. So when he wants, you must give him. You don't have to say you don't want. You must give him because that is what he has paid. So that is what dowry does to women. Like bride price, you're selling them to another person, and that is what God is condemning. Like I said earlier on, it is very hard to condemn it here. When you're able to stand for this truth and fight dowry, then you should be able to know that you're going to lose everyone. Your families won't stand with you. You're only going to have the movement, and then the members in the movement will understand that it is bad to sell cows. You still find even where we have ministers of gender, they will still be bought. Like you want to run, you can, like our constitution now says marriage is between a man and a woman only. But you still find, when you look at cultural marriages being done, when a woman is not being paid dowry, the culture torments her. The community around her makes her see like she's worth nothing. Even if she's not being paid dowry, she's not going to be respected at that man's place. You keep getting trauma and abuse. How can you just go for free? So they will use that term, free. They will not. Even if when you try to explain to them, this is selling and buying of a woman, they will say, okay, this is fine. We're just giving an appreciation. But what kind of appreciation do you give to a woman's family? And you have a very big list in an envelope. They'll tell you, pay this, we did this, we did that. And when you try to give reasons why you're not doing that, they don't want to understand. They tell you culture stands. So we can see how culture has affected the whole world. So in all parts of the world, we have culture, and this is what we are fighting. So it becomes very hard to fight culture, but we know that our Sunday law has changed. It is culture and state. And that means there should be enough struggle and individual effort to fight culture. Though in other countries are much more worse. But for us in Africa, we are still struggling with dowry. Like, we can't even speak about the vulnerables. It is really very challenging. You just have to speak about the rights of women. It's really very hard, because a particular people get to be tortured and mistreated for their sexual orientation, regardless of who they love. They will still not have that right here. So even when we claim the rights of women, but if you try to dig more and you are being affected by such factors, you don't get a chance to be helped. But that doesn't mean that women are not being tortured in all parts of the world. I've been following, I think I was reading an article, there was a lot of histories about women being raped in hospitals. I think that was New York. So there's also another film director called, I think, Weinstein. He sexually harassed a lot of women. But later, though, he got arrested. But that doesn't solve the problem of what these women have gone through. That is just trying to give justice, but that pain, that experience you went through, that process, is something that will remain in your life, that will be very hard to destroy from you. Just like Nama has experienced here, it's something that will be very hard for her to explain. And a lot of these women that were raped by ISIS rebels, terrorists. So you can imagine the children that were brought by them. You find that when they wanted to go back home, they were told not to go back with the children. Like, where do you expect these women to, what do you expect them to do? Such a situation. This is very painful. So let's continue. And there's a lot of distraction. As one of the few women in a field that was still mostly male, I came into war reporting by accident. And it was not the bang that interested me, but what went behind the lines. People keep life together and feed, educate and shelter their children, and protect their elderly, while around them, all hell is breaking loose. So how can you do that when all around you it's very toxic? You're doing everything normal, like nothing is happening. And this is why the message of gender becomes global. Whether you are Christian or not a Christian, we need to see, because when you trace out from atheism, you need to see they don't believe in God, but the misogyny and the atheism within the atheist community, it is too much. Like Richard Dawkins calls himself a feminist, but time and again, when Rebecca Walker is going to post on Twitter how women are being viewed, is going to criticize and comment back, showing that it doesn't believe in the rights of women. It is not a feminist. We can relate this to our own individual life. Like, we are feminists, we are radical feminists. Like we said earlier on, feminists divided into three. So liberal feminism, that gave us what we have now. Then we have cultural feminism that still endorse the gendered roles between men and women and still endorse patriarchy. And then you have the radical feminists. So as radical feminists, we are deconstructing the mindset of the society within us, and then within the people that are around us. So we really need to struggle to eliminate these factors. We have a very big role to play individually. Sometimes when you're reading this history, it is very to see like these people are really doing all these horrible, toxic things to women. How about us? How many times have we encountered women that are suffering and we didn't have a chance to stand with them, to support them, relieve them of their pain, what they're going through? One way or the other, we have experienced that. We know what it means to stand for the truth. So she speaks here. how people just keep, you just like nothing is happening to you. So probably it will really be very sad for us. Like I appreciate really the movement at the end of the world and the work of the Midnight Cry, helping me and us to understand the rights of women, and not only the rights of women, that to treat humanity with respect and dignity, we need to learn how to treat people fairly and nicely. We would have just thought about the first 4 commandments because we have been only dwelling on the first 4 commandments, and the last 6 was nothing. We didn't care. Just do what you want to do. That's none of your business. But again, 1 John 4:20 tells us that if you love God whom you have not seen, then you can't love man whom you've seen. Then you're a liar. You cannot love God whom you have not seen, but you need to love somebody that you're seeing that is created in the image of God. So human beings are created in the image of God. Women too are created in the image of God. They deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. And they're also born with alienable rights. Like what pains me off is seeing women struggling to get that rights. Like they were not meant to have that right, but they were all born with the alienable rights here. This is what pains me time and again. Women will have to look at what first wave feminism went through, all the abuse they went through, all the insults. They still struggle. A lot of women were killed. They struggle to achieve the rights of women to vote. To vote. You come to second wave feminism, women suffered so much in the process of having their rights being put in place, also in the constitutions to protect them. You come to the third wave feminism, it is very hard to fight the mindset of the society. And that's why it looks like we are not doing anything, even though we are really struggling. And we only don't look at the society, we also look, we are part of that society, that we have been raised and brought within this patriarch mindset, whereby we expect women to have this particular role and then men to do this particular role. So we have a very big role to play individually. She says, the Afghan mother telling me how she scraped a mass from rocks to sustain her children as she shepherded them through the hills to escape bombing. The mothers under siege in the old city of East Aleppo, who conjured up sandwiches for their children from fried flour and forage leaves. She kept the children warm by burning furniture or window frames, while streets around them were bombed into grey dust. The Rohingya women who carried their children through forests and across rivers to safety after Burmese soldiers massacred the men and burned down their huts. You won't find these women's names in the history book or on the wall. Memorials that we pass in our railway stations and town centers, but to buy, they are the real heroes. So according to her, the real heroes are these women who have gone through all this trauma. You can look at these women, you're struggling to feed the children, there's war in place. That is really very hard. And you rarely find that with men, because men have been taught their work is just to provide finance, do this. When it comes to children, that's the work of a woman. So even when the movement is saying men and women, there's no gendered roles, you still find these challenges are happening time and again in marriages, in families who are in the movement. People still want gendered roles. That's not my work. Maybe if they're saying a woman should be given a right, women should work, then maybe husband will say, okay, fine, you go and work. And then we'll leave all the responsibility for a woman to accomplish, saying that you also have the experience I had. How can somebody whom has not been given the experience just get up into a business one day, start doing everything like you has been doing for roughly very many years of your life? Once we do that, that means we have not understood the message of equality. If we are there to help the women stand up, then we need to stand with them and help them realize their rights, help them see that they can do just like what you can do. So she speaks more about here, about what women have gone through. You will not find them in history books. Just like when you see all these encyclopedia, a lot, when you try to trace out these books, you don't find a lot about women that have written books. You don't find more about what women have done. You find more that have been done by men. So the longer I have done this job, the more disgusted I have, the more disquieted I have become. Not just at the horrors I have seen, but at the feeling we often hear half of the story. Perhaps because those corroborating the accounts are generally made. Even now, histories of these conflicts are mostly told by men writing about men, and then sometimes women writing about men. So as she says, you find most of these histories men writing about men, or sometimes women writing about men, not men writing about women and what they have gone through. So she has come out to speak out what is happening in the warfare. Something needs to be done. The government should not just sit. All these rape cases, all these perpetrators must be criminalized for their actions, for what they're doing. But if you try to follow, you realize that most of these rape cases have not been even given, most of these perpetrators have not been held accountable for their own actions. They've just gone scot-free. It is not just about the writers who see this land of wars, land of men. Women are often excluded from negotiations to end wars, even though study after study have shown that peace agreements are more likely to endure if women are involved. So, like when you go back to 1840, Anti-Slave Convention, we just saw that it was men who were in the part of the discussion to end the slavery. In the same like manner, you see that she's elaborating here more that women are left from peace negotiations to end warfares. Men are the one always coming to solve this problem. Even though studies have shown that women can solve it more peacefully. So I don't know from which perspective they're seeing, because maybe when you put men and women, they're able to solve this problem, or because of the mother nature. Like women are soft, they're kind, they are caring, they will be knowing how to speak out to soften the hearts of the people, to ensure that war doesn't exist. I don't know which perspective we are saying this, but if basically on the mother nature, then we don't agree with that, because that is automatic sexism. We are assuming that if men are solving the issues of war, then women can also solve the same issues at the same time, not basing on and mother nature of what is expected of a woman. It is not just that, sorry. I used to think we are safer as women in a war zone, that there was a certain honor towards women, but there is no honor among the terrorist groups and merchants of evil. It seems clear that in many of today's conflict zone, it is more dangerous to be a woman. Over the last 5 years, I have seen more shocking brutality against women. In country after country than I have witnessed in more than 3 decades as a foreign correspondent. So this is what is happening externally in warfares. She has seen a lot of brutality done upon women. Here goes even more. Like something happened some 3 weeks ago here. There was a man that went and killed a lady because they were first married. So she left him because there was violence happening in that marriage. And then she moved in with another man. And then when she moved in, they had a child. She moved with that child. And what happened is, this man is going to go up to where this man and this lady had gone. Like they had gone to, like for a day to relax, to accompany themselves. This man enters that place with his friend, goes and kills this lady, stabs her on the chest, kills her, and then also hits the other man, the man the woman was with. Now that will be the current husband, hit him properly. I don't know if that man has survived, but the woman was dead. And a lot keeps happening on women. Like if you're a man here and you're moving in the streets, you can be scared. They will take away your money. They will take away your things that you're having. But if you're a woman, there are 2 factors involved. You only not be they'll not take your properties. They will take your properties and then they will rape you. That is what happens. So you have to be very careful. And when anything happens, if you don't go through the police, you don't work it out, you don't get your problems to be solved. So it is not easy. It's about the poorer women who maybe don't have money to access themselves to get justice for themselves. They end up remaining silent, like nothing has happened. But when they're going through all this form of violence. So she thought women were safe, but women are not safe. It looks like women are safe. These cases are happening time and again. Only one need to visit the great galleries of the world through the classics to see that rape in war is nothing new. The very first history book in Western history by Herodotus opens with a series of adoptions of women by the Phoenicians, then the Greek, and eventually the Trojans snatching Helen. So plainly, women would never have been carried away had not they themselves wished it. So you can see even when you see this history, what are they saying here? Women are not being carried away if they are not wished. Sorry, it's okay. Hello. Okay, fine. So we plainly, she said this in this history, they're telling us that plainly women would have never been carried away had they not themselves wished it. Quotes Herodotus in early indication of how men promises Achilles women in abundance if he captures prey. If the gods permits us to sack the great city of Priam, let him pick out 20 Trajan women for himself. Indeed, the fraud between the two men is caused by Agamemnon being forced to give up the woman he took as a prize and trying to help himself to that of the Achilles. So you can even follow this issue saying if women are not given themselves, I don't know who will give themselves for war when there's war, like to be adopted, to be taken for warfare, to be captured. I don't think anybody can do that in reality. This is just, you look at the statements that are always being used here. Looks like these women were interested. They wanted to be taken away, but that is not the case. Rape and pillage was a way of rewarding unpaid recruits and for a conqueror to emphasize victory by punishing and subjugating opponents. What the Romans termed 𝗂𝗶𝗶𝗲𝗍, war to the conqueror. So you can see somebody who has not been paid, he gets his, his reward by raping women. That was really so toxic. You trace down to the times of Alexander and the ancient Greece, Persian and Romans, Alexander the Great and the strings of fair-eyed, blue-eyed children left across Central Asia to comfort women of Imperial Japanese army and the mass rapes of the German women by the Red Army in the World War II. This is what has shocked me. Even in the World War II, there was rape. So you can see there's no war that has happened without women going through all this. There's been no war that has been happening without women having been raped. It's a tool that these men use either to feel their lust, to threaten their enemy, because they just want to do that to women. Because in their mind, they think women are just inferior. You can just do what you want to them and just go freely. Even in World War II, mass discovery that its genitalia could serve as a weapon to generate fear must rank as one of the most important discoveries of the prehistorical times, along with the use of fire and the first crude stone, concluded American writer Susan Brown Miller in her groundbreaking account of rape against our will, published in 1975. So Susan Brown Miller published a book called Rape Against Our Own Will in 1975. Rape is as much of a weapon of war as the mentioned the club or the club. So you can see it's one of the warfares. As people having their guns in their mind, they know they have other tools for fighting. You can see that. So we have other countries where women have really been abused, and we are seeing maybe in terms of warfares, but that doesn't mean the abuse of women is not happening. It's happening everywhere. Nigeria, Colombia to Central African Republic have used rape as a deliberate strategy, almost a weapon of mass destruction, not just to destroy dignity and terrorize communities, but to wipe out what they see as rival ethnicities or non-believers. We will conquer your break your crosses and enslave your women. So you can see what Abu Muhammad is saying here. They're going to conquer Rome, they'll break your crosses and enslave your women. Spokesman for the Islamic State in a message to the West as ISIS fighters swept into northern Iraq and Syria in 2014, adopting thousands of girls like Nami. So this one takes us back to Yazidi women, what they went through, and the war that was happening in Syria. A lot of women suffered. A similar threat came from Boko Haram, an even more deadly terror group, as it storms villages in northern Nigeria, killing the men and rounding up girls as bushwives to be kept in the camps to produce offsprings. This is very tragic. Women are girls are being kidnapped, taken in the bush. They're going to be used as to produce offsprings. A new generation of jihadists in a chilling real-life version of Margaret towards the husband, the maids, the handmaid tale. This has just reminded me. I was trying to follow some documentary on China and India. It was very terrible. A lot of rape cases on women. Like I was thinking Uganda was very worst. But when I read other documentaries, I felt very pain. Oh, it is really very hard to be a woman. Like what you go through, the rape cases that are being done on them. It's really very hard to see what those women go through. And most of these people keep saying like these women were just trying to make up issues, you know? You try to speak out something like, you're just making out an issue. If you did not start it, I would not have done that to you. I adopted your girls. We are still continuing with what we're reading. I adopted your girls. I will sell them in the market. So we can see bride price is still happening here. But it looks like more within this the terrorists by Allah declared Abubakar Shakur after kidnapping hundreds of schoolgirls. I will marry of a woman at the age of 12. I will marry of a girl at the age of 9. So that is child marriage. You marry a girl at the age of 12, 9, that is child marriage. We need to see. These things are very painful. She says she listened to the women with the unmanageable stories. And as I poured my heart into trying to do justice in recounting them for the readers of my newspaper, I asked myself over and over, how does this keep happening? The intimate nature of rape means it is underreported generally, and even more so in conflict zones, where reprisals are likely, the stigmatization common, and evidence hard to gather. Unlike killings, there are no corpses and numbers are hard to quantify. So this is like killing, like you're killing somebody, because we know there are very many ways of killing. We only know this physical death. If somebody dies, we already see the person is not dead, but you can kill somebody mentally. Like there's a lot of people who always go through a lot of depression. They have a mental stress going on, mental issues going on. And when they kill themselves or they commit suicide, we don't really see, like, we even end up condemning them. What they did was very bad because they committed suicide, because we always only emphasize more on the physical death. When somebody is sick, we care so much about the physical body, getting that healing and that the deliverance from the diseases that has attacked the body. But a lot of mental issues have been left unsolved. So when somebody is going through all this pain, this tragic, most of them end up committing suicide. Most of them end up suffering time and again. But even where we do not know, where courageous women came forward to describe their ordeals, rarely in the action movies, as we can see with the Winston, those women started speaking out in the film industry. So normally we look at the film industry, there's still a lot of these cases, like a woman is, if you see what a woman is expected to dress half naked to bring in more funds, but how about if other male performers like Jesse would just dress like that? They would dress normally and it's not a problem, but if you try to dress normal, not going to bring in your customers. So you find that most of these women will still dress to suit the mindset of the society, what the society expects them to do. Like when you go back to the ancient Greeks, the time period when there was pederasty, it was only male beauty that was considered. But when you come at the end of the world, you don't see male beauty being considered so much. There's much more emphasis on female beauty. So there's that beauty standards. You look at the beauty pageants, the Miss World, Miss Africa, Miss Uganda, all that is too much connected with sexism, because what is the expectation of having a woman? You're saying we're having a Miss World. What are the expectations? You need to look at how the woman is going to dress. And you look at the makeup, like you need to do things for the society. All that is connected with the sexism. And you can trace down back to the time period of second wave feminism, where first and second wave women were fighting for their rights. And you start seeing the beauty pageants coming in. It's another way of telling a woman that you are not beautiful the way you are. You need to add up certain things to look just the way the society wants you to be. Like in ancient Greek, that time period of pederasty, where male beauty was being considered, it was the male trying to put in all efforts to look more beautiful to attract other people to them, because that is what the society expected from them. But when you come at the end of the world, it goes back to women. A lot of pressure is being put on a woman. You need to do things for the society. You dress anyhow. Why are you dressing like that? Why are you looking like this? You need to be like what the society is expecting. And as radical feminists, we are saying a woman is free to dress without makeup. There's nothing. She is beautiful the way she is. So this is something that is very hard. Yeah, this is something that is so challenging. Like in African countries, it's still happening. And then when you go to the West, the same thing. There's a lot of beauty standards, a lot of makeup, a lot of jewelries, eye heels, all that is connected to sexism. You still find it's a very big challenge, and it's still going on time and again, because that is what the society expects women to dress and how women to appear. So a lot is expected from a woman. Like if a woman wears a short skirt, they'll tell you like you are dressing like that because you want to, you are attracting the men to yourself. But you can find a man even with a bare chest and nobody thinks about that. Like it's okay. You can just, it is hot, just remove the shirt, enjoy, you feel good. But if a woman does that, I'm not telling women to remove that shirt, but I just want us to see the mindset behind that, the sexism that is connected with that. Like when a woman wears pants, what the society is expecting, and what if a man wears? We just need to see that the mindset that is connected with that is sexism. So when issues about the rights of women It's really a lot. We can speak more about it, but much more effort can be done within our own fellows. So as a movement, the movement has tried with all its possible ways to bring us to on the same equal ground to or yeah, I don't know if it is my internet or it is really yours.
Yeah, I think it's your internet, but it doesn't matter.
It's mine.
I think because we were all three still in, but it's not a problem. Just go on.
Sorry.
No problem.
No problem. We're happy that you're back.
Yeah, I think it was my internet. I would like you to help me to know the minutes I'm left with. You can put in the comment section.
I didn't understand. What did you mean? Share a quote or something? Did you
Sorry?
Did you share something? A quote? No.
Oh, you asked. She asked. Did you ask a question? Oh.
Stop. Vraag stel van de vraag in de comment section.
Misschien
moeten we aan hun ook vragen als we dan video's uitzetten.
Maybe we should put off our videos.
I wanted to ask like how many.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So surely rape during war had been illegal for centuries. For the first trial I could find was in the German town of Bestrecht in 1474, when Sir Peter von 𝗔𝗃𝗃𝗏, a knight working for the Duke of 𝗂𝗽𝗃𝗏, was convicted for violations of the laws of God and man, a 5 years reign of terror in which he raped and killed civilians as a governor in the 𝗵𝗃 Valley. His defense was he was only following orders and was rejected. So his defense was he was only following orders and he was rejected. But then he was criminalized for his actions and given, I think, probably a death penalty. Some describe 28-man panel set up by Archduke of Austria as the very first international criminal tribunal. Others urge that this wasn't war rape, as there was no conflict at that time. One of the very comprehensive efforts to codify the laws of wars rejected the long-held views of rape as inevitable consequence of conflict. When you look at President Abraham Lincoln General Orders number 100, also known as the Libya Code, issued in 1863 for the conduct of Union soldiers in the United States, civil war strictly prohibited rape under the penalty of death. So we can see now in this time period they're trying to put a law that is going to criminalize people for their actions, the perpetrators for the actions of raping women. But at first, all the things were happening and there was nothing being done about it. In 1919, in response to the atrocities of the First World War, including the massacre of hundreds of thousands of the Armenians by the Turks, Commission of the responsibility was set up. Rape and forced prostitution were near the top of the list 32 war crimes. So we can see now it's going to be considered and put in as one of the crimes that needs to be dealt with when it happens to humanity. That didn't stop in the Second World War. Outrage at the horrors of that war, when all parties to the conflict were accused of rape, led to the victors establishing the first international tribunals in Nuremberg and Tokyo to prosecute war crimes. Yet there was not a single prosecution for sexual violence. So you can still see it becomes very easy. Even when they were struggling to prosecute war crimes, there was none that was done on violence, not even an apology, instead silence. Silence on sexual slavery of the comfort women, silence on the thousands of the German women raped by Stalin troops. So you can see even the time period of the time period when Germany and Russia were fighting, you still find that, I think that is World War II, right? Yeah, you still find that you still find women being raped there. There was silence. So silence has been always the response for this, all the sexual violence that was happening, until they tried to amend and come up with a law that will protect women when there's rape being done on them. Silence on the German women raped by Stalin troops, which I read nothing about in my school history books. Silence too in Spain, where General Francisco Falanges had raped women and branded their breasts. This is very toxic. For too long, this has been the reaction. War rape was met with tacit acceptance and committed with impunity. Military and political leaders shrugging it off as far it were a sideshow. So people were just living it like it was a sideshow. It was not being dealt with, or it was denied to have ever happened, or they even said that rape cases never took place. The second paragraph of this article 27 of the Geneva Convention adopted in 1949 states, women shall be especially protected against any attack on their honor, in particular against rape and forced prostitution or any form of indecent assault. Now, when you look at Geneva, they're going to come up with a law that will protect now women against rape and forced prostitution and any form of indecent assault. For decades, it has been the world's most neglected war crime. So one thing that has been the world's most neglected war crimes is rape for very many years, though right now we know that the law being put in place to stop these issues. But that doesn't mean rape itself had stopped. Humanity is still doing that time and again. The result, for decades, it has been the world's most neglected war crime. It took rape camps being set up again in the heart of Europe for the issue to get international attentions. Like many people, the first time I heard of sexual violence in the conflict was in 1990, during the war in Bosnia. The resulting outrage suggested the end of the tacit acceptance of rape in war that existed historically. In 1998, the same year as the first conviction, rape as a war crime was enshrined in the Rome Statute, which established the International Criminal Court. On the 19th of June 2008, the United Nations Security Council anonymously passed Resolution 1820 on the use of sexual violence in war, indicating that rape and other forms of sexual violence can constitute a war crime, a crime against humanity, a constitutive act with respect to genocide. So we can see now they're making us understand it's a genocide. It's something that needs to be done about it. A year later, the Office of the Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General on Sexual Violence in Conflict was established. But 21 years after the creation of the International Criminal Court, he had not made a single conviction for war rape. The only one had been overturned on appeal. Having the crimes on the statute books is a start, but clearly no guarantee of enforcement or even proper investigation. By their very nature, these crimes are often not witnessed and direct orders not written down. Hard for victims to prove who had made to. The situation had not been helped by the fact that investigators are often male and not always adopt at eliciting testimony on such sensitive matters. Decision-making positions are often held by male prosecutors or judges who do not see violence as a high priority compared to mass killings, sometimes even suggesting the women ask for it. So you can now see, when you see the history, we see that women have gone through a lot. And this is really so much painful. We know radical feminists from externally are trying, but we see them failing. And that still gets back to us internally as a movement. We have a very big role to play. It doesn't mean we are going to solve all these problems of war crimes. We are going to end all this. It is very hard for us. Like the Yazidi women, do we really think we can help those women and solve their problems? It is really very hard. But God wants to educate our mindset so that we understand and we do not practice this on human beings. We understand externally what is happening, and we are supposed to see internally how this is impacting us as a church of God at the end of the world. And as a radical feminist, we are supposed to see that women and men are created equal in the image of God. And therefore, it is our own responsibility to struggle to eliminate all forms of sexism and misogynity that are done upon women. So I was trying to ask, like, how many minutes am I left with?
I think you're now on for 1 hour and 15 minutes about. So I think.
Is it done?
Yeah, you can end whenever you want. I think you have 15 minutes left if you want to.
Okay. You can maybe help me indicate. That means I'll finish at
1
at
at
1?
your place. Yes.
Okay, fine. So the urgent need for us to practice this truth becomes very clear. Like, there's this quotation I've been reading where Ellen G. White was telling us that God needs people that will stand up, even if the whole heaven is going to fall and collapse. So the people that God has raised at the end of the world, it is us, and we are supposed to reflect the image of God. Remember the ancient Israel, they were peculiar people. But when you come back to us, we are to take on that we are the peculiar people at the end of the world. To do what? Are we just a peculiar people to be like ancient Israel? They never did what they were supposed to do. They did not accomplish their work. So we are peculiar people to stand for this truth, to practice, understand the value of the message that will be given at the end of the world. To understand God in his fullness, like we've understood that God is not sexist, God is not racist, and God is not homophobic. So we realize that the God we serve is the God of equality. And that's why we are supposed to be taught with the message of equality, to understand the character of God. We have a very big work to do on earth, and then we have a very big work to do in heaven also at the same time. So if we don't understand and practice this truth, when you go in heaven and you meet Abraham, a slave holder, Sarah was calling him Lord. How will you be addressing that? And he had slaves too. Because when you read from Genesis to Revelation, it is going to endorse slavery. How will you speak to Abraham? You need to have a proper understanding. At the same time, when you look at how the Bible has been written, it has been pro men. There's a lot of he pronouns that has been used. When you go back and you follow the history of Christ, you also know that Christ used the 12 disciples were men. You can look at all the prophets, most of the prophets that were being described in the Bible were men. And people like the wife of Noah, even the name was never mentioned, even though it was the one that helped Noah to understand how to count the days for the flood to end. It was her, but she was never mentioned in the Bible. You can still follow a lot of histories that has been happening, and women have been left behind. And John the Baptist comes, and what does he do? He's going to start baptizing people. Christ comes, he's going to baptize both men and women. And Paul is going to tell us that there's no Greek, no Jew. We are all the same. But when you go back to ancient Israel, they thought that it was only them that God was to save. So it became very hard for them to see Gentiles. Even when God was telling Peter to take the message to the Gentiles, what was Peter's response? I'm not going to deal with those unclean things. And you could see the names that were given to the Gentiles, really. They were called dogs. You can see that. Christ tried very many ways to ensure that the Jews would have a proper understanding that there was no difference between Jew and Greek. They were the same people, they were equal people. So when you also come at the end of the world, you see there's so much emphasis for us to understand what God has been saying. When you trace from Eden, we know that when you stand in Eden, in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 26 to 27, God created man and woman equal. Both of them were created equal. They were all given the authorities and all the power to lead and take care of this world. When Adam and Eve sinned, patriarch entered the world. That's when a woman was put under the submission of a man. But we don't have any evidence to prove that Adam had mistreated Eve. But generations to come, that's when we see that mistreatment, that abuse going on. When you see that sexism going on, then after that, you come to the sin of Cain. He killed his brother. So you can see the first killing. What is Cain doing? He's going to kill his brother. A relative killing a relative. You can see that. And then you see the sin of false worship is going to enter the world. And then after that, you come to Ham. So Ham is going to see the nakedness of his father. And if you read the book of Genesis, that's what it will tell us. But when we compare and contrast sexism with racism, you realize that Ham did not see the nakedness of his father. Actually, he saw the nakedness of his mother. Not only did he see, because when you only see the nakedness of somebody, you don't get a curse immediately, though. Because Noah immediately proclaimed the curse, and that was just like the same curse God had pronounced, and it became fulfilled in generations to come. So actually, Ham had raped his mother, and what is Noah doing? Noah is making a proclamation of a curse upon Ham, saying that curse be upon Canaan. So how do we start having Canaan in the mix of the story if Ham had not raped his own mother? But the Bible didn't say that. Because of euphemism, it wasn't used there. So a lot of things have been left behind because of euphemism. Then you see now at the end of the world, God is trying to restore back the three curses. And you see from 1798, God is going to start with the issue of racism in the United States of America, trying to solve the issues of race, telling that all people are equal, all slaves, all human beings are equal. There should be no slave, there should be no black. We are all the same people. So it got solved in 1798. And then you come to 1888 history. A.T. Jones is going to speak for religious equality. That is now marking the solution of the issues of false worship. You can worship your God on any day. You don't have to put a law that will enforce other people to worship God on any other day. And then you come to now the one that God has been dealing with, which is sexism, that has really taken so long, roughly 6,000 years for God to eliminate, which is very hard, is the issue of sexism, and which is worldwide. And that's something that we should put all our emphasis on, because sexism is very pervasive and it's very hard to eliminate. You can see from externally, we can see internally as well. how it is very hard to eliminate sexism and misogyny, but that doesn't mean we cannot eliminate. So for us, we have been given much light, we have been given much more understanding, we have been given much more truth. So to whom has been given much, to whom is expected much too. So we have been given all this light to guide us, to help us to practice this truth God has given at the end of the world, not for us to sit down on this truth. So if we were to look at Abraham, you wouldn't say Abraham had a different test in this particular time period. So for us also, we have a test, the test of gender. So for us, we have the test of gender, which is testing us at the end of the world. And we see culture, it's something that it's affecting us, and we need to find a way to eliminate. Not that, I don't know if we can eliminate culture, because culture has been with us from the time that we have been born, and then we have been raised, we have been nurtured, everything. We have been taught this culture of sexism, making us understand that men are different from women. Men are superior, women are inferior. Men are strong, women are not strong, are weaker vessels. You find that time and again, people keep arguing that women do not have good brains for reasoning because they are the weaker vessel. They cannot come up with something. But as radical feminists, we are deconstructing that mindset. If men are superior, then women are superior. If men are strong, women are strong. We're not going to look at the physical embodiment of somebody. We need to consider very many factors, as well as we look at we look at the issues of gender and sexism. Then another thing that we can also see, we know that sin started from heaven. And one of the reasons why sin happened in heaven, because Satan felt oppressed. He felt like he wasn't being treated fairly in heaven. And therefore, he had to rebel against the government of God. And Christ was made equally with God. So you still see it's still the issues of equality that is coming into play. So if it's the issue of the equality that started from heaven, we also still see at the end of the world, we are going to still have issues of equality. But if Adam and Eve had not sinned, probably we wouldn't be where we are. But since now sin had occurred, we need to find a way to solve these problems. Because Adam and Eve were given all the proper warning, they were given all the advice. Everyday angels would come and teach them. If you read prophets and patriarchs, you read about the fall of man, and the fall of man, you realize that Adam and Eve had been given all thorough warning. They were to follow all the orders God had given, and there was freedom and equality existing. They had the freedom, they had the equality. They had a choice to make. So they chose freedom over equality. And in the first classes, we understood that if where equality and freedom triumphs, one must take over. Equality must take over where they conflict with each other. But you see, at the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve chose freedom over equality. So in the same like manner, we are here at the end of the world. We have individual choices to make. We have freedom and equality versing one another. And which one do we choose at the end of it all? Do we choose equality or do we choose freedom? I think I would urge us to choose equality because there's life and eternity in it. That's the only mechanism God is using to ensure that we understand not only our rights, we understand the rights of other people, and we should be able to treat humanity with love and respect. It's all about treating people equal, not us seeing like we are peculiar people and other people do not deserve to be treated with respect and love. So at the end of the world, much emphasis needed on us in regard to the truth. So I would go through the summary. So we're able to look at feminism, and we realized that we emphasize more on the rights of women. And we were able to trace out from 1840 and see that there was anti-slave convention. There was a meeting, there was a gathering that was there. And women also wanted to be part of that meeting to end slavery, and they were not allowed to be part of that meeting. And through the work of these three women, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucretia Mott, and then Lady Bryan, they were able to meet up with women and then come up with like certain revolutions, seeing the religious and the social, the cultural conditions that had oppressed women, make them not to speak out. Then you come to 1848. From 1848 up to 1919, 1920, we're going to see first wave feminism stand up for their rights, and they managed to get the rights to vote. Then you come after that, we have the World War II that was happening. Men went to workplaces, and women resumed workforces, and they realized how it was fit to work. They enjoyed what it means to work and be independent and have money. And then later, war ended, women came back and resumed back there. Sorry, men came back and resumed back the workforce. Not all women accepted to go back and become housewives and household to take care of what is in the family. Not all women accepted that. And that sparked the rise of second wave feminism from 1863 with the help of 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏, who wrote a book on feminist mistake, trying to explain the assumption that people thought that women were comfortable, were happy with the mindset of being housewives, with the mindset of being producing children, that women have better dreams to realize than what the community was expecting. Then from 1863 to 1989, where we are going to have intersectionalism with the work of 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗏, she's going to speak more, because at that time period, women have been given the rights, but the Black women have been left behind. So we see much more emphasis to make sure that the Black women should have their rights to vote. And then from 1991 to 1918 to Second Advent, we're going to mark that with the rise of third wave feminism. And we're going to have Anita Hills being sexually harassed by Thomas Clarence. So she speaks out what has happened to her in the Congress, and then they rejected her testimonies, making it look like it was just a political maneuvering she was bringing on Thomas Clarence, because he wanted to be the Supreme Court judge in the United States of America. And then Rebecca Walker wrote a book saying, if you see a woman experience being ignored and rejected, that should put you in pain and make you understand that the war has just begun. In third wave feminism, we are fighting the mindset of society. First and second, they're using the law. They're going to fight and get the rights of women within the law. Now, after that, we're going to have feminism gets to be divided, because there will be a lot of confusion, separation to understand what feminism is. And then they get divided into three, where we have cultural feminism, liberal feminism, and radical feminism. And cultural feminism stands on the side of still emphasize there's a different roles between a man and a woman. Though sometimes they would say a woman should be paid for taking care of a baby. And then you have liberal feminism. They try to work within the patriarchal system to give women their rights. Then you have the radical feminism, who are trying to go back to the root, to the root of the cause of this problem, the root of the cause of sexism, and dismantle from there and make women understand their rights. So we see that we as a movement, when you trace out the big line, realize that you stand in 1989, then that's the end of 9/11. You have the Sunday Law, the COP, and Second Advent. So where we have the radical feminism message being formalized, it is in 2021, which is the formalization of the message of the 144,000. So we as a movement, we had a proper understanding. We have really been given the understanding of radical feminism, that we stand with the radical feminists on their position as a movement to give our views and understand the rights of women, as while we start breaking down sexism right from the root of it. And then what we did, we went back to 1844. We said external things impact internal things, whereby we saw that the election that happened in the United States of America in 1844 history shaped the future of the United States of America at that time period. But the male rights did not consider that. All the eyes were on heaven. They thought Christ was coming very soon, and they never considered the external events. And yet they were supposed to have a say on such external events as well as a people of God at that time period. So we as a movement, we have to also look at external things and also have a say on that and see how that impacts us internally. And then with the message of gender equality, it became global, with the introduction of World Wide Web, we saw that it's no longer going to be within Christendom, only within the United States of America. It's something that's going to be worldwide. And therefore, we should be having a proper understanding and see how sexism is very pervasive, how we see the atheist community do not believe in the existence of God, but they are very sexist and very misogynistic. How we see communism is also still very sexist and very misogynistic. And that should help us to open our eyes and see that we need to break down the sexism that is within us. Then another thing that we did, we read an article that has been written by Christiana Lam. We didn't go into deep, but you can read that at your free time and see how she explained what does to women's body, how women have been constantly raping warfares, how men use rape as a tool for fighting besides their gun and their weapons. So you can still see that. And we tried to go through some histories and we realized that most of these rape cases have been going really scot-free without these women being given justices and have not been written in the history books. But we need to understand that if this does to the women's body, where there is war, women always go through that. And that this should help us to understand that whether in marriages, people near us, we should understand what rape is and how it affects women on a general scope. And this happens in all parts of the world, regardless of what country you are. And another thing we saw, there was a lot of selling of these women, like number was sold by 12 different men and raped very many times by different men. You can still see that in African countries, there's still this dowry payment issue that women are still being sold and they term it as an appreciation. We realize that God does not allow selling and buying of human beings. So we need to work on that and understand why God does not want that and the truth that God has given us at the end of the world. If marriage should be conducted, there should be no selling and buying of anybody. Marriage should be done freely without any human being being sold. And that's the reason why women have been abused so much and time and again mistreated and tortured because of dowry, because of the bride price that these men have paid, because they claim that women are their property. So in the same like manner, in the West, we still have women being abused and in different manners, despite the fact that they may not have dowry issues being done there, but that doesn't mean we don't have women being abused. So we as a movement, as a radical feminists, we should understand that we should practice this truth and change our mindset, change our thinking, because there's security in understanding. And once we have understood the truth, we are able to practice within our own families, we are able to change the mindset of people around us. So I'll beg to stop here. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. Any question? Or any compliment?
Yes.
Maybe first
Yes.
start to you.
Yeah. No, I think it was really nice how you introduced the book, Our Bodies, Their Battlefield. We already saw it at the media broadcast, but we didn't read it yet, or I didn't read it at least yet. So it was a nice introduction.
Okay.
And also the way how you made the connection with the dowry system, actually, how women are just sold, actually. That's really
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I think it gives a good perspective to the lives we live here in the West, because I think often we forget, or I at least forget, how privileged I am. But then you have the whole concept of intersectionality, as you mentioned, and depending on where in the world you are, your class, your ethnicity, it just changes so much for that one person. And I think that was a good I think your presentation was also a good reminder. Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any countries in Africa where dowry is more prevalent, like where it's more where it's practiced more or where it's practiced less? Like South Africa, I think it's more of a liberal, not liberal country, but maybe more westernized country. So maybe dowry is not as present there, or am I wrong?
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think South Africa, like you said, is much more westernized, and I think dowry is not like so much a very big issue from that side. And though some countries do, but we still find women being sold. But still, the rest of the African countries, it's still something that it's still going on. Even up to here where I am, it's something that it's still going on. And it's very challenging when we still realize that even when Christians have understood the dangers of dowry payment and they pay it, you realize that they have not really understood the rights of women, and they themselves have not understood that they're not supposed to buy and sell a human being. And that is what God doesn't want. God wants us to not to be sold in any way. I think there is a lot of pressure, and people don't want to separate from their families, don't want to separate from their community, because dowry really separates you. And as Christ has said, he has come to bring sword but not peace. So the message that God has given is very strange, it's very unpopular. A lot of people at human rights speaking about rights of women, and a lot of people speak about rights of women. And if you try to speak more at length, and as a movement, we understand what we believe in and what God is saying, we stand for this truth, and you get a lot of challenge, because you still be hearing even other people speak about rights of women, but they don't say what you're saying. Then you mean you're much better than the other person who is speaking about the rights of women. You still find still takes you back to women still gets to be solved. Even the ones you think they are speaking about the rights of women, you still find them kneeling, the submission, and it's still very painful. But I think really South Africa, do you have any country, Oscar?
Let's say more prevalent, it's Uganda, South Sudan.
The one that are more prevalent? I think Uganda too. It's really, though I think all over Uganda, but most countries too, even Kenya, South Sudan. Yeah, South Sudan dowry is really very, very strong. Like that time I was there for some 10 days, we were able to interact with the members from South Sudan. We really realized it's really very serious, because even marriage itself, it's by culture. So when you want to escape dowry, it becomes very tragic. The community can, when you want to marry, the community can just do anything. You can't just marry without dowry. Whereas for us here, it's strange, but if you reject and understand your rights, the culture will impose threat, they will abandon you, they will leave you, they will reject you, family members will reject you, but that will not stop you from doing what God has really said. At least they will not have to they will put all that pressure, of course, because you will still be abandoned at the end of it all if you stand for no dowry. Few parents can accept that, few, not all parents, but mostly parents of the male are the ones that jubilate more, because they will not have to look for cows to pay. But still, even if when you die, you'll be forced to marry a dead woman. So you can see how that level it goes. It is really very painful. You can't get respect if you're a woman who is married without dowry. Your family will never respect you, because for them, they see that is what culture demands. So what you're asking for, as you, Sandra, is what that has never been done in history. So we can't do that. You just have to leave that evil religion of yours and do the needful. You just repent. So some Christians will understand they're not supposed to do that, while others will end up having the society pressure and compromise on their religious belief system and what God is saying at the end of the world.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to think about, my brother just married 2 days ago. And at the marriage, there was also said that he asked the father of the bride if he could marry her. So I just had to think also, that's also from this patriarchal system, that this woman is I mean, we're not in our country, we're not sold and we're not property of our husband and so on. But still, if you as a man ask the father of the bride, can I have your daughter? Then you're still working in this patriarchal system where she's first the property of the father and now his property. And I just had to think about that as you were talking about the dowry. Maybe it feels different because there's no money in the game, but it's the same actually, that you're still working with this system. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Like there's there's this naming, like when it comes to naming here, most of the people that have names, the names comes from the father's side and from the male side. No, few comes from the women's side, but though they will not give the name, mainly the name of the husband of the woman, but the name will come from the father's side. And then from South Sudan, I realized that if a woman is going to give a name, she's going to give the names from the sixth child, meaning that the five children are the names that are coming from the side of a man. And then when you go to the West, this is what I've also seen. You find that most of the names that have been given to the children comes normally from their husband. Like if you have, maybe I can say if you say 𝗃𝗶𝗴𝗲𝗏, and then the husband is 𝗃𝗶𝗏, and then the wife will be 𝗃𝗶𝗴𝗲, maybe Mary Lamb, then the children Winnie Lamb, still Ronnie Lamb. It's still that mindset that still endorses the male patriarchy system, whereby still the lineage will still go back to the male. Because when you call the name, you still find that it's still attached to either your husband's name or your father's name, but you don't get that from your mother's name. So it will still uphold that patriarchy, though you people don't have dowry. But yeah, it becomes a very big threat and a very big issue. Yes.
No, any more
I
questions?
can't hear you.
Can you
Yes,
hear me now?
yeah.
No. Are there
Yes.
any more questions? I was asking the rest or comments.
We can't hear you about.
I think somebody's talking. I think he has muted. Why stop? I think you've muted. He's speaking. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can't. Okay, yes, I can hear you.
Yes? Oh, okay.
Yes, I can.
I was trying to ask a question, but now I understand why you didn't hear me. Yeah, I would be interested to know, like, are there also feminist activists, like in countries like Uganda, who are fighting for equality and against this dowry and such? Or are you like really standing alone when you stand for equality?
Okay. If I may ask you, do you mean externally or internally?
I mean externally in the country, like in society, like.
Yeah. Oscar, do we have feminists externally in Uganda that are standing for the rights of women? Leon? Rita? Like
There are people outside there who are advocating for the rights of women, but not purely as radical feminists as we might appreciate. Other people are saying women should go to school. There are bills where people are trying to say that it's not okay, even proposed to parliament. So there are people who are fighting for the rights of women, but it's not as cliche as we might view it and say, yeah, that person individually is always on the agenda to fight for the rights of women.
yeah, like Oscar said, there are some feminists that are fighting externally, but still we don't have that being put in place. There was one who was trying to speak about dowry that has really brought women down so much, but there's nothing that has been done about that, because you find that most of them also end up being sold by, again, the husband, and it becomes very hard for you to speak about dowry because that is what culture expects from you. Unless maybe all I have the people in the movement who are struggling to fight. So you find that when you're fighting, it becomes very hard for you to be respected from at your home. You end up losing everyone. But that doesn't matter because the truth must stand. So dowry becomes a threat. So we cannot be a radical feminist movement in Uganda and we again sell human beings. We don't support that. So if it comes with consequence, then it's better to bear the consequence for the truth than to bear the consequence of error, and then you have eternal ruin. So like I said earlier on, a lot of people speak, yes?
No, go
I
on.
wanted to say something.
Yeah, a lot of people speaks about the rights of women, but if you try to dig more, you will not find them speaking like the way the movement does. You try to uproot the sexism right from the deep root, as well as they're saying the rights of women. Still, there is that mindset. Okay, fine, women are equal with men, but still there's that expectation. Supposed to need for a man. All that is still attached to that. So the equality is not the equality the movement says. Like as we've been speaking, the movement has been speaking a lot about the counterfeits, and we know right now that there are very many counterfeits. We have atheism, we have the papacy, we have false Protestants, apostate Protestants, we have Adventism. So as well as when they're speaking about women's rights, it's not like the way we speak, because at the end of the day, women may end up being sold. There will still be patriarchy within the system. Women will still be, there will be these gendered roles. So it is still, there's only one true church that speaks about the whole truth. And that automatically it's only the movement that does that, but the rest are all counterfeits of this truth. So when you hear papacy speaking so much about vulnerable, speaking about, so I'm really saying vulnerables because of what has really been done here. It's really very hard to speak about it openly, but a lot of them suffer so much because of their sexuality. And then when they even speaking about the rights of women, it's really, when you hear papacy speaking, but women can never be Pope like himself. They can never be. Just these small offices of deacon, singing, choir masters, they think that they've really put women as their equal, but they're never able to put women as we're going to have a woman Pope. It's never there in history. You try to trace all the four horsemen, some of atheism, some Aries, Richard Dawkins, you still find them. They still too much sexism. So as well as we only have one true movement that stands for this truth at the end of the world, and that is only the movement, and the rest are all counterfeits, as well as they try to speak out from a different perspective, but still you won't find women being given their rights equally as it is being given in the movement. So it's really a very big privilege to be in the movement, and it's really a very big offer.
Amen.
You wanted to say something, Denise?
I wanted to say I liked your point when the book was talking about studies have shown that women are better at solving war issues or conflicts. And then you said, okay, but we need to be sharp and think, okay, why is that? Why is it that women seem to be better, and is it only women that can solve can cause peace? And I like the fact you pointed out that we've been socialized to think women are the ones who have these traits, that they are soft, that they are peaceful, and therefore they have an intrinsic strength to fight or to bring about peace. But that men can also learn these things. It's not that they are only female traits.
Yeah, you're right. Just reminded me. Most of the times when you find most of the women are very submissive, and it's very hard for them to speak bold because that is how society has raised them. So when I'm speaking and I'm being bold, they tell you're a man. You would have not been created a woman, because that is not how they expect a woman to speak. Because when you're speaking to a man that has respect and he has a position, then you must at least be submissive, kneel down for him, bow down. If you're not going to kneel, at least there's how you're going to show your face with that submission and meekness and humility. And when you don't do that, you're a man. You're not supposed to be a woman. God just made a mistake somewhere. So that keeps coming time and again, because you're not going to have those qualities of what they expect in a woman, and you keep meeting that challenge time and again.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for
Thank you
being
too.
with us.
Yeah.
Maybe
God
it's
bless.
good to end with the prayer.
So I was
yeah.
maybe I wasn't there, but you live in Uganda, right?
Yeah, I'm a Bible worker in Uganda.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Shall we end with a prayer?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Pray. Shall I pray?
Okay.
Or do you
Maybe.
want to pray?
Okay, you can pray.
Okay. Dear God in heaven, we were so thankful that we could meet over Zoom. Thank you for the presentation that we could attend and that Sandra was able to give. Thank you that you guided her mind, her words. Thank you that we've learned more about feminism, about dowry, about this inequality that we see in the whole world in all kinds of things. And we pray that we as a movement may stand for true equality. And we pray for Sandra and the whole group in Uganda that they may be a true force there, and that we also in Denmark and Holland may be true fighters for equality. We thank you and we pray for a blessed Sabbath during the rest of the day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.